What happens when a law doesn't protect you, but buries you instead? That's what I want to talk about. This is the Actual Facts Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
The current president, Donald Trump, he just pardoned an individual by the name of Larry Hoover. Now, if you know Larry Hoover, then you already know it's a name that sparks debate, controversy, confusion. Some people call him a gang leader. Others call him a political prisoner. But no matter what side you stand on and no matter what you call him and whatever you believe about his past, one thing is for sure and two things of a certain. His case is a symbol of how the American justice system overpenalizes Black people, especially on circumstantial evidence. So in this episode, what I want to do is I want to talk about the case of Larry Hoover, and I want to ask one critical question. Where was the due process for him? And it brings up a bigger subject, which is how many more individuals are still being denied due process. So let's talk about the facts. Larry Hoover, he was convicted of murder in 1973 and he was sentenced to 200 years in prison. Then federal charges pursued, right? He got hit with some federal charges. I want to say this was 1997. Conspiracy, drug trafficking, and more charges built largely off of circumstantial evidence and wiretaps, but no direct action. Now, what's crazy about his situation is that he has been in solitary confinement for more than 30 years. Did you hear what I just said? He has been in solitary confinement for more than 30 years. And he's not at a light prison. He's at one of the most harshest prisons in the United States. So what does all this mean? No physical evidence directly tied him to a crime. But peep this. They say because of his influence, not his actions. Did you hear what I said? His influence and not his actions were used as a justification for an extended punishment. Now, despite clear rehabilitation, now there are so many different rehabilitation efforts, so much legal representation, right? For him, showing that he's grown, but he's still locked away. And right now, there's no clear path to his freedom until he's 111 years old. Now, I want you to ask yourself, if the shoe was on the other foot, would a white man be convicted at 22 with no direct evidence linking him to some type of ongoing crime, be buried under multiple life sentences, decades and decades, and no one says anything about it? Would he be kept in a supermax solitary confinement type of prison for more than 30 years with no human contact, no rehabilitation, no real second chance? This is the case of Larry Hoover. And when I look at Larry Hoover's case, I'm telling you, it exposes what happens when justice becomes retribution for Black people and Black men living in America. Now, I'm saying this because I want you to understand what true leadership means. Because true leadership is asking, why does this system work a specific way for one group of people and a completely bipolar opposite way for another group of people? Now, here's what Larry Hoover's case really reveals about systemic injustice. There's an over-criminalization of black men. Because when you talk about Larry Hoover, one of the first things the media tells you is they give you an image of a gang leader. And he was a specific target. Larry Hoover's identity became the evidence. No actions, no facts, just associations and a lot of assumptions. The media, they labeled him. And when I tell you the media works to convict you in the court of public opinion. So by the time they give you a trial with your peers, they're already saying you're guilty. Now, like I said, the media, they labeled Larry Hoover and they put on a stigma that he was basically irredeemable. Now, they did that before he even went to court. Now, I do have a problem with circumstantial evidence being weaponized. I say that because circumstantial evidence is consistently used as a weapon against black people. This is just what I'm noticing. Now, prosecutors, law enforcement, they built Larry Hoover's federal case around conversations, coded language, influence that he supposedly had. No direct crimes. No direct crimes were committed by the hands of Larry Hoover. All this circumstantial evidence. So now peep this. How can any person on this planet receive life without parole because they are influential? Did you hear what I said? People in the United States, specifically, a person by the name of Larry Hoover is given life without parole for his influence, his alleged influence. But Wall Street bankers who collapse economies consistently get a slap on the wrist. I'm telling you, it's a broken system. It's a two-tiered system. Yeah. You have white collar criminals, violent offenders with privilege, even politicians. They get reduced sentences. They get early release. They get full pardons. But if you look at J. Edgar Hoover and look at all the crazy things that he did, influential in the government, creating a variety of, I'm going to say, COINTELPRO, I'm going to say counterinsurgent, I'm going to say illegal, immoral, unethical acts against who? Specifically targeting who? So now when I look at Larry Hoover, now, of course, he did just get this presidential commutation of his federal sentence, but he's left serving 200 years for a conviction that is completely unjust. The justice system never gave him the benefit of the doubt. Now, from my understanding of things, Due process is a promise for some people, but it's a myth. If you are black and you are a man living in America, you better understand there is no due process for you. Now, some people think this is about Larry Hoover, and it is. But this is not just about Larry Hoover. It's about a system that is consistently flawed and is constantly punishing the potential in black men, and is punishing them and criminalizing them and punishing them without direct proof, even when they have proof of white men. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if due process doesn't work for everyone, then guess what? It works for no one. I once heard and I once read that Martin Luther King said that a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that applies here. So now the question in my mind is, how in the world are we going to lead forward? How are we going to push forward? How are you going to push forward? A people stripped of your history, your heritage, your name, your language, everything that makes you who you are. How are you going to push forward? You got to make an assessment of right now. What needs to be done right now to assist you in your current situation? That's the only thing you can do. You got to demand transparency, especially in these sentencing practices. Oh, my God. When I tell you it's so much corruption there, especially for the people who are put in charge of the influence. Do you understand me? Not the direct evidence, because you don't have to have direct evidence to convict somebody. Larry Hoover just proved that. I'm telling you, man, the system, specifically the criminal justice system in America, needs to be reformed. So I need you as an individual to make an informed decision. I need you to support legal reform, especially for individuals who have parole eligibility. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need advocates who are advocating for parole eligibility, trying to advocate for the improvement of prison conditions, even access to fair appeals. We need advocates who are advocating for clemency at the state level, because a lot of times people think that change happens on a governmental level. No, change happens at a local level. It happens at your state level. So you have to advocate for clemency at a state level, because that is where the real change is needed, especially in cases like Hoover, man. Educate yourself on the difference between guilty by evidence and guilty by association. You understand me? So we got to stop letting the mistreatment of people who look like me and people who look like you just go on and no one is saying anything. You got what I'm saying? Look, so it don't matter where you was born. Look, if you was born in the streets, if you was born as a criminal, the pathology of a criminal, look, we have to stop thinking like we are isolated. We have to stop being individuals. We have to think collectively. We got to start treating this criminal justice system like it needs a major repair. You got what I'm saying? Now, this is the Actual Facts Podcast. And once again, this is not really about Larry Hoover. He's just one man in a gigantic system that is filled with flaws and is consistently exhibiting and showing a pattern of corruption. This justice system is over penalizing black men and using circumstantial evidence as the chain, and then they're calling that due process. I'm telling you, it's not. More people need to stand up. You need to rise up. You got to educate yourself, though, because if you don't educate yourself, then guess what? It's useless. Now, if this type of content is something that marinates with you, if it sizzles in your spirit, like Country Wayne said, look, drop a comment. And let me ask you a question. Do you believe that Larry Hoover deserves a second chance? If you do, state why you do. If you don't, state why you don't. But let's have a logical conversation. Now, I do understand we are living in a time of social media, and I will get a comment of, eventually, I will get a comment of why you have to mention race. Listen, I address all elephants in the room. I am not like an ostrich that hides his head in the sand and pretends like nothing is going on. A lot of you moral cowards see that there's a problem. There's a problem out here. A lot of you see that there's a major problem and you say nothing because you're a coward. You're a coward in your heart. You're a coward in your mind. You're a coward in your spirit. Your whole life, you've never stood for anything. And hey, if you benefit from the injustice of others, then guess what? Of course, you're going to stay silent. Facts over feelings. Stay informed, stay engaged. I'll talk to you soon.